what's up, everyone? I'm here with Jason Goldberg. I'm really excited. He's a very special guest, JG. JG, how you doing today?
I'm great. Wait a second. Hold on. How do you mean special? Is this like short bus special or like real, like heartfelt special?
It's heartfelt special,
Oh,
special. But if you want to make it more than just regular heartfelt special, we can make it more.
let's do that. I want it to be the weirdest special that it can be. Thank you.
There you go. Yeah, guys, I'm really excited. Jason, he's an international speaker. He's a coach. He's a best-selling author of the book Prison Break. I just want to make sure I get the subtitle right here. Vanquish the Victim, Own Your Obstacles, and Lead Your Life. It's an awesome read. Check it out if you guys are into breaking through some old patterns and creating life the way you want it. Jason, I'm really fascinated by you because last weekend we were in that workshop, ACS, Steve Chandler's school, and your presentation was just awesome, man. You were up there, you were killing it, you were really engaging with everyone, you were totally relational. And it just, like when I was seeing you speak, I was like, dude, that's exactly that's exactly where I want to be with my speaking. I'm already pretty out there, but you're just really lighting up the room. How did the charisma and who you are as a person, where did you get this? Did you develop it? Was it always kind of natural and you just had to go into it? Where is this really coming from is my question.
Yeah, I think it's a really good question. And I appreciate that. I'm glad you enjoyed it. And it was a lot of fun for me, and you and that whole group is like so easy to be with. It's like, I guess that, that's part of it too. It's like the room you're in can definitely affect the energy that you bring out. I've been in some dud rooms before, and I bring all of myself to it, but all of myself is not experienced the same way if I'm met with like just blank faces. So you guys were awesome. So that's a big part of it. But the other thing I would say, like from a really young age, and I kind of mentioned this in the talk, was from a very young age, I was always kind of a class clown, kind of a performer. So I always loved kind of being center of attention, which is really weird because I also am really bad at taking compliments and really don't like to like receive. So it's like I want to perform, but then I want to go away and don't have anybody talk to me about my performance. Like I want to see them laugh and I want to see them be affected from afar, but I don't want them to come tell me that they were affected because then I'm like, oh, I don't know what to do with that. So that's my own work. And this is not a coaching session for you to coach me, but that's the thing, that I still work on. But at its core, from a very young age, like I just really love performing. I love making people laugh. And for somebody who, I had really low self-esteem growing up, especially in my teenage years, which I guess everybody does, but I only know my experience, and I had a lot of self-esteem issues. And even into my 20s, and even still today, there are things that still get me. But what I realized early on was that I could get some love and some approval and some validation by making people smile, making people laugh. And so that became a thing that maybe was a bit of a crutch when I was younger and had self-worth issues, but now has become a way that I really can authentically connect with audiences and with clients and with prospects and all these other different, areas of things that I do in my life now. So as far as how that translates to, the stage, let's say, for example, and whether that's a physical stage in the offline world or like, Facebook Live and videos and stuff in the online world, I think a lot of it is practice. I think a lot of it is being really clear on kind of what your message is and in the simplest form as it can be. And that's something I was just coaching a client before this call, and the entire call was really focusing on how we can get her message super simple to where like when I first asked her about it, it was like a 12-minute diatribe. And then by the end, it was like one line. And it's like, it's not a marketing thing. It's just like, Einstein says, if you can't explain it to a 5-year-old, you don't understand it. I think Einstein said that. I don't know if I'm giving him credit for shit I didn't even say. But so I think for me, like the more clear I've gotten on, the one main thing that I want to keep pointing people back to all the time, I think that's also made it, it's given me the parameters I needed that say, hey, as long as you stay in this lane, then you can always be resourceful and pull from your intuition or pull from your experience. So I think that's helpful on a content level, but at the really deep core level, and I think this is the question you're actually asking. I wanted to give you some kind of practical stuff on top of it, but at a really deep core level, it's just knowing what lights you up. It's just knowing what you're best suited to activate within other people. And once I really got the sense for me, and this has really only happened, I've been doing it, but I really got the sense purposefully of what this is for me in the last 2 years, is I really understood, I really got it, that joy is my base, right? Like joy is like, for me, joy is like the butter in cooking. Like almost every form of cooking uses butter or some form of butter as a base. Doesn't matter what kind of food you're cooking, that's in there. So for me, joy is my butter. Joy is my base. So if I can lead with anything I'm doing with that joy as the base, as the foundation, then everything else I lay on top of it is not only more comfortable for me, but it's also more uniquely me, because it's me leaning into my gifts as opposed to just being another, I do that too kind of coach or speaker. So super long-winded answer for a very simple question. I don't know if that resonates or where you want to go with that.
No, totally. That's beautiful, man. I love the metaphor too that you use about butter being like the base of everything and then using the joy. And like, I feel like bringing that into your work, whether you're doing coaching or your public speaking. And that's one of the things that I really saw with your public speaking. It allows people just to be more receptive because they're like, oh, holy cow. Like, wait, that's what I want. I want to be in that space. How do I get in that space?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. But you nailed it. Like, if anybody is practicing, and I do a lot of work with speakers, and actually I worked one-on-one with somebody else who was in ACS just on speaking, and a lot of that working on the performance piece, it was all about being conversational. Like there's no difference between you being on a stage in front of 1,000 people or you and me talking like we're talking right now. Like I'm not scripted, I'm not polished, I'm talking about my own struggles, I'm kind of all over the place. And you obviously want to be on message when you're on stage. But as far as the conversational tone of it, it makes all the difference in the world because luckily for us, and I don't know if your audience is primarily coaches or speakers or people that are just into personal growth, but lucky for people like you and I, and that was one of the reasons I was attracted to you when I first met you, is that you also show up very like, this is me, like I have enthusiasm, charisma, personality. I love that about you. And the great thing is that in this day and age, people are no longer looking for the sage on the stage.
Wow.
Has all the damn answers and like has never struggled before, or they've struggled, but they do it like in a theatrical way. I was homeless for 7.5 minutes until my mom finally let me back in the house. And it's like, that's nobody resonates with that shit anymore because they know it's a performance. They know it's bullshit. So when people go up on stage and they're like, hey, this is kind of what I do now. And this is what I do with my clients. And by the way, the reason I know this is not because I'm smart. It's because I've struggled with it my entire life. Let me tell you about how it was when I was a teenager. And it's just very conversational. Those are the speakers I resonate with big time. Like the ones that are all theatric and people are like crying. I love them that they exist in the world. And there's a wall there I can't get past. But when somebody goes up there and they're like Chandler, I mean, one of the reasons I love Chandler, he just goes up there and says, I have no credentials. I'm not certified, nor am I justified. I had, bankruptcy and alcoholism and it's just me. And it's just like, oh, wow, a human, how refreshing.
Yeah. Wow. That's awesome, man. I think that's so spot on too. I think like, if you want to think in terms of marketing, what real marketing is now, and this is definitely a lesson that I've learned in social media, it's just being real. I mean, that's what it means to be relational. Like when it comes to if you want to connect with your audience, and I have some business clients out here in Boulder, and that's the first thing that I always tell them. They're throwing out marketing, they're using social media, they're doing all this stuff, and they're trying to get into this space where they're like delivering their product. And it's like, look, just focus on the other person, focus on being real and relational and connecting. And when you just focus on that and make that your end goal, everything else is going to come after it. But that needs to like be the base. And that's what I really admire in the coaching world, because I'm really new to the coaching world. I mean, I think I was practicing some of the principles unconsciously, but then once I think I got a couple of Steve's books by Calum, about a couple months back ago, and I like read it and it just blew my mind. I was like, this is it. Like, this is the answer, you know? And so coming into your guys' world now, it's really amazing for me to see like, that connection piece and that relational piece, like that's, I think, where everything is headed. I think that's what like the most successful businesses, the most successful people, whether you're speaking, writing, it's just like being real, brings out that relational component, starts the conversation, and like it starts that connection. And that's something that in my own experience, just from being out in the world and doing some of the work that I do, that's what we all crave. Like that's part of being human, is like connection, authentic relations, and connecting with other people. And I think if you're missing that piece, like that's just really damaging to like your relationships with yourself, but also with other people. So I love that. I love that emphasis on connection though, and just and relating and being real with people. Because I mean, that's what really brought me. That's what really like just I saw shining in you. I was like, dude, that is awesome. Like the connection, the relation, being authentic, and like that's how I am. Like that's what I want to embody, and I always strive to embody more and more as I go on in my life. And when I see that in other people, I'm just like, dude, that's it. Like, yeah. And I love, what was that term you used? Sage on the stage?
Yeah, sage on the stage. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. I totally agree. I mean, the sage on the stage, and it takes the pressure off you too, because when you can just be real and say, look, man, I've figured out some shit that's really, really helpful and awesome and has worked for me.
Yeah.
I'm not here to give you all the answers. And it like, and it's, I mean, it's just mind blowing to me, because then you don't have to hold all that responsibility to have the answers. But that's when people have breakthroughs too.
Right. Totally. No, I love that. And, you know, and something else too, and you said it, I love it. Like really nowadays connection is the number one currency, right?
Yeah.
And this is not to use connection as a strategy. I don't mean it's a currency. Like this is how you get people's money, but I mean, this is how you actually connect with people in the world, like in general, right? This is something we've always known on a personal note. And for some reason we forgot that professional business is a personal thing. So I love that. But the thing that I want to make sure people know too, that are watching this, is that this does not just apply to people that you may see or think are like Jared or like me, who maybe lean more into the outgoing. I actually skew introvert, so I won't say extrovert, but the outgoing, charismatic, whatever, like bigger personality kind of thing. That actually has nothing to do with being successful and sharing who you are. This is about being really aware of what allows you to best connect to people and going all in on that. And I remember back in the day, so I was a rapper back in the day as well. And back in the day when I was a rapper, there was, the way rap works, for anybody here who's watched any rap shows or anything, they're like, the hands are up in the air and it's like really over the top and there's lots of movement and dancing and like grabbing yourself in inappropriate places. And like, that's how you move on stage. And when I was a rapper, it was no different. I was, hand up in the air and like all this stuff. And then I remember there was this one show that I performed at, and the guy that came up after me ended up becoming a good friend of mine. But this guy that came up after me, his name was Adam. And Adam went up on stage and stood at the microphone and did not move at all and mesmerized the entire audience with his lyrics. Like, wow. And he wasn't like a spoken word guy where it would make sense for him to just stand there. He was dropping like some really hot shit. But he just it wasn't his thing. He knew that the way he could best connect with the audience was not to distract them by moving around the stage, but for him to really stand his ground, stand in his power, and make sure they had nothing to distract from the power of his lyrics. So if you're somebody who's watching this that's grounded or stoic or peaceful or light or whatever it is that is kind of your natural state, all these things we're talking about apply to you, because there are going to be people who watch me and say, somebody switching to decaf. I can't handle this. This is like too. And I've had people tell me that. People have posted on my videos and said, you're irritating. And I'm like, you're right. I'm super irritating sometimes. So there are people that won't resonate with me, and then they'll find you and be like, oh, I don't mean you, Jared. I mean you, somebody who's like grounded and stoic and light. And they'll say, oh, wow, finally somebody who's speaking in a way that my brain and my body and my energy can actually relate to. And we could be saying the exact same thing. So that really is the only differentiator we have now, is for us to inject our personality into our teachings.
Wow. Yeah, that's spot on. And I love how you say that, like, because there is that big misconception out there when it comes to speaking and being on stage. People think you have to be extroverted. You have to have this certain type of personality. But it's like, no, you can bring your own uniqueness, your personality to that public sphere. And it's just about what's really going to relate to people. Like you said, is about authentically bringing it. Like, don't trying to mask this. Oh, I have to be this way or this way. Just like fully bring yourself. And when you fully bring yourself, then people are going to resonate and connect with that naturally. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And Audra's in agreement with us. Thank you, Audra. Yeah. And so guys, speaking of connection, guys, if you got a question, please throw them out there. We're going to leave the last 15 minutes. We got about 15 more minutes here on the interview, then 15 minutes on the back end. We'll open up to questions. If you guys got any questions. Hey, Samantha, good to see you. So please, if you guys got questions for Jason, please just throw them out there and we'll come back to them in the last 15 minutes. Cool. Jason, I'm really interested because the coaching work, I love it because it's so interpersonal and it's deep, and you can really get that one-on-one focus. And one of the things that the coaching world has been really teaching me, and we talked about this just a little bit already, is that you can be with a room full of 1,000 people, like you said, or you can be with one person. But essentially it comes down to connecting with another person. And the best way that we do that is through communicating like realness, being authentic, and then really focusing on the other person. And like are pretty much when we focus so much on the other, the self disappears in that moment. Have you noticed a difference in your coaching work when you work with your clients and then who you are up on stage? I mean, I'm sure there's some similarities there, but also I'm sure there's some differences. Can you talk more about that?
Yeah, I love that question. I don't think anybody's ever asked me that before. So I really like that question a lot. I think that what comes up for me is that the elements of who I am at my core don't change from being on stage or off stage. What happens is that the degree to which I call upon those things changes based on what will most serve the person in front of me. And this is a really important thing just in general. And so I'm really happy you brought it up because there are people that I coach and people that I have coached. And there's one person I'm thinking of in particular that has a really over the top energy, right? Like really, really over the top. She makes me look like I'm in a coma. Like I'm telling you, I don't know how expensive her Coke habit is. No, I'm just kidding. So, but she's brilliant. She has amazing things to share, and her energy is like, if I'm a 10, she's a 73. And so we were talking about this, and I started having this sense that maybe we needed to kind of tone that down a little bit in her world, right? In her coaching and her speaking. And she called me on it. And I'm so happy she called me on it. She called me on it. She's like, what are you talking about? I thought it was all about being authentic. And I'm like, oh, damn, you're absolutely right. Like, how do I reconcile this? Now I'm telling you, I just told you, like, be all you and be unapologetic and just put yourself out there. And now I'm like, and what I mean by that is do that, but not all the way. I'm kind of lying. Let's turn it down a notch. And so we kind of sat with that. And then finally the insight came to me that was really then looking back, it's exactly what I had to do because I realized, and, I started getting triggered by her a little bit. And it's because I realized, oh shit, I used to do the exact same thing. I used to be like way over the top and I never realized what I did to change that. And this is where we got in this conversation. And the conversation became, how do you balance authenticity with service, right? Authenticity with service. So be as authentic as you could ever possibly want to be, as long as you're still being effective at serving people.
Wow. That's beautiful.
And that way you're not dumbing yourself down. You're not diluting yourself. You're not toning yourself down. But if the goal is to be authentic so you can serve, and you're being so authentic that it dilutes your ability to serve, then authenticity is no longer serving you to be authentic. Right. So then the conversation was not tone it down because it's too much. It's tone it down because ultimately you want to be effective at serving. And this may not be the most effective way for you to serve.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Amazing. That's blowing my mind because that is literally the exact issue that I've been coming up with most recently because I'm seeing the impact that I can have in people in my coaching and the work that I do. But then at the same time, there's times where I'm like, well, I always want to be authentic, but I know this is authentic to say this or do this, but right now it doesn't feel right. And it was like this, what is that middle space and that middle ground? So for you to just throw it down like that, man, that is awesome. Like that makes perfect sense. So it sounds like you found that middle ground with your client then and helped her to get in that space where it was like,
yeah, and she's going to practice, and it's going to be a kind of thing where, the pendulum swung the one way of being way over the top. I envision that there's going to be a time where she may swing the other way and try to, really dumb herself down and quiet herself down, and I'll be there to pull her back to the middle. And maybe she won't. Maybe she won't go that way, and maybe she'll just get it right away. But that happens. We kind of swing pendulums, and then we get into the middle. So I think it'll just be a moment by moment thing. So for me, where I still have some challenges with that is that the way my brain works is that I think of a lot of stuff on the fly. Like when I'm speaking on stage, 90% of the comedy in my talks is just on the fly, right? There are some jokes. There are some jokes that I always tell because they land well and they work well with the content, or it's a good conduit to get them to get a certain concept. But 80 to 90% of it is just like on the fly. And there are definitely some times where I will make a joke on the fly that's slightly inappropriate. And I'm thinking, that may not have served I did that one time, and it was met with some quiet. And even though it was met with so much quiet, I still decided to do it again. And I'm glad I did, because now it gets laughs. Is I have this one thing I do during my talks where I talk about this story about a 17-year-old girl who did this really amazing thing out in the world. And I don't want to ruin it in case anybody sees my talk, but she did this really amazing thing. And I'm just celebrating how amazing it is that a 17-year-old would do something like this. And I said, and this was like, it just kind of came out. I was like, man, I can't even tell you, like a 17-year-old, I can't even tell you what I was doing when I was 17. And then what came out of my mouth was so many hot showers. And you saw a couple of guys in the audience started laughing and then quickly stopped. And everybody else didn't like it. But it's like one of those things where I'm like, oh, crap, that was truly authentically me, but did it serve? So,
yeah. Well, and it's funny because I'm definitely similar in the sense when I'm like, if I'm speaking, I haven't done too much speaking. I've only had a couple speaking engagements, but I really that's where I feel most in my element. I really thrive there when I'm like speaking and connecting with people. So I feel like sometimes when I get on that, like, I guess energy high is almost the right word to say. Like, that's where like you just come full force. And then later in that self-reflective process, you're like, okay, yeah, maybe I couldn't have said that, but now I learned the lesson. And next time, maybe I'll tone it down. Or like you said, maybe you'll tone it up. Maybe it'll work or something like that.
Right. You just have to test it. And one thing I will say, and this was another thing that I've had to really play with, and I had to get some coaching around actually, because I'm typically a pretty big textbook preparation person. I'm a prep person, right? And so I've always been someone to like really prepare. Like if I'm doing, an hour-long training, like I do a lot of stuff for Mind Valley and I record trainings for them. If I'm doing an hour-long training, I'll probably show up, and the producers know and they laugh at me. I'll show up with like 7 pages of notes, right, for an hour-long training, which I don't need. Like I can have one thing and go off for an hour, but I needed that sense of like comfort in preparation. And there's nothing wrong with preparation. But the reason I'm saying that is because there's a really good a distinction and a balance that I've started to learn to make or to play with, and I want to talk about how this applies if you're a new speaker versus an experienced speaker. Is this distinction of prep versus presence, right? Prep versus presence. And what I realized was that when you're a new speaker, it's much more effective to skew towards the prep, right? Don't leave a lot of room for improv because you're still getting your footing. Right. So if you are just starting to learn the alphabet and you, for the most part, know the alphabet, but once in a while you have to look down at your notes to remember which letter comes first, the M or the N. When you're on stage, like prep for that, like prep for saying the alphabet on stage. But once you've said the alphabet on stage 5 or 10 or 15 times, if you want to go up on stage and in the middle of the alphabet stop and tell a story, then you can do that. If you want to throw on some funny accent as you're telling the alphabet, you can do that. If you want to, make a joke about how stupid the alphabet is, you can do that because you know the alphabet. You can be present at that point with less prep. So I think the more you become experienced as a speaker, you can maybe prep less and be more in a place of presence. And it's just kind of noticing where you are on that scale and doing what's most effective so that you create an impact in the audience, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. And I like that metaphor with the alphabet. It kind of just comes to self-mastery.
Yes.
And, and just learning. And when we first start off something, it's like we're trying to learn something that's outside of us and we have to think about it a lot. And so that thinking doesn't allow us to be nearly as present. But then once we start mastering it more and more, then you don't have to think about it. It just becomes second nature. And then that's what allows that presence to set in and gives you more control over the moment in there. Yeah. But yeah, I love that. I think that presence but preparing, but also not being constricted by the process and like going in there with the whole framework. Because I used to be like that. I used to be like, oh, I got to have it all mapped out. I got to have it like and I would get so much anxiety. Paralysis by analysis is what I call it. And then I would like show up and I would bring that energy into whatever it is that I'm creating, because I just spent like, 3 days preparing for something anxiously. And now all that anxiety comes into the thing that I'm doing.
Right.
I was like, okay, well, that's not working. So now I'm just going to wing it, like say, fuck it. I'm just going to do it and just go out there. And then I was like, okay, now I'm up here and I really don't know what to say. I have some stuff, but now I'm running out.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's
I think it's really about, what's that?
It's being in the middle.
Yeah, exactly. No, that's exactly it. It's being in the middle. And I like what you said earlier. And I think Stephen McGee said this in the workshop over last weekend. It's like, you come over here and then you go all the way over here. And it's like really like right in the middle is where we want to be. And that's just the learning process. We start here to the left and then we go over here to the right. And then eventually we kind of find our balance and our center in the middle. And that's where we can be most effective and serve.
Yeah. Yeah. Nobody gets to skip any of these steps. I mean, we want to so badly skip the steps, but it doesn't happen. And with the right guidance and with, there's frameworks and things you can do to help with content and everything else. But even it's like just because a magician shows you how to do a magic trick doesn't mean you can go do that magic trick. Right. So it's one thing to know the theory or to say like, I know that here's the framework for creating a keynote and I teach all this stuff, and I would never lie and say, as soon as you know my framework, you're going to be an amazing speaker. It's like, no, like, the framework, which is hugely beneficial. Like to fly a plane, you need to know the physics of air travel, right? Don't be like, if I have a strong enough mindset, I can fly a plane. No, screw that. Like, still learn about aerodynamics. But once you know the physics, that's great. It gives you some level of comfort. And then you go fly your ass off hours and hours and hours. And before you know it, I was going to say you fly with your eyes closed. I'd prefer pilots don't do that. But you become so comfortable with it that you can kind of fly by instrument instead of fly by sight. So I think that's important to do over time.
Yeah, wow. I think that's awesome. It really comes down to taking the time to integrate it. You have to embody it. And I think in the information age that we live in, bypassing is another good word for it. Thanks, Audrey. We want to just have it right away. It's like, I feel like in the information age, we consume information just like we do food or anything else. And we can deceive ourselves and think, okay, now that I got the information, I'm just going to go out there and do it. And that's not it. I had a saying come through that I posted on my Instagram the other day, and it said, information is not transformation. And I think that's so key, because when you have that informational component, it's really easy just to deceive yourself and say, oh yeah, like I can do this, and go out there and do it. And then, you fall flat on your face, and then you learn. And I'm just speaking from experience here, because I did it. And then I was like, oh wait, like that's not it. I actually got to take the time, master the material, allow it to like embody it. And then once I do that, then I can actually take it out in the world and help others step up into that space as well.
Well, and it's so much more powerful to do that, right? Because we can learn so much more from somebody who was a recovering alcoholic than from somebody who studied alcoholism in college for 4 years. Right?
Absolutely.
So hands down, it's like if you're somebody who's in, the healing arts, if you're a coach or a speaker or a consultant or a thought leader, an online educator, a teacher, whatever it is, do stuff out in the world. If it's not for yourself and you're worried about the outcome, don't worry about the outcome. Do it for the story. Because people are only ever going to be attracted to and listen to what you have to say if you have some story of why you've been there. Like it's the hero's journey, right? Like the hero's journey doesn't work intellectually. It works because you've done something in the world and you come back to tell the story.
That's beautiful. Yeah, I love Joseph Campbell's stuff. I'm always about great, good stuff, man.
Have you seen Finding Joe, by the way?
What is it called?
Finding Joe.
No. Is that a book by him?
It's a documentary. That's all about the hero's journey, but it interviews just some of the most amazing people in personal growth. Do you know Brian Johnson, the guy that does Philosopher's Notes?
Love his stuff.
He's in the documentary as well. It's just find it, buy it on Amazon, and just keep it, just watch it. It's absolutely amazing.
Awesome, sweet. Yeah, that's definitely going in my watch list then.
Yeah.
So, and guys, we got about 15 more minutes here. And just if you guys got any questions, I got a couple more questions for Jason, but please, if you got questions, just feel free to put them up there and we'll get to it. We'll start answering them.
Yeah, thanks for the love, guys. All these people are like, that's so cool that they're here and they're engaged. People love you, dude. You must do some pretty good shit for people to keep showing up and doing what they're doing here. So that's amazing.
Oh, thanks, Jason. Yeah, I'm doing something right, man. And we've talked about this before. Once I realized the power of social media, I was like, oh my gosh, this is just so cool. And I really love YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook, and just connecting with people. It's such a powerful tool because people are out there. We're looking for that connection and that relational piece. So it really is such a powerful thing, I think.
That's actually, it's funny too. Like the whole connection thing is so present for me right now. And I see what Audra said there. Yeah, see, we all think you're wonderful. And somebody else, I'm probably butchering the name, but Royson said Finding Joe loved it. So like, yeah, dude, there's two people now telling you need to watch it. So I was just recreating, doing some stuff in my business and creating a new document of like the purpose, the vision, the mission, the values, all the things for my business, and send it to my team. So we're all kind of working on it together to make it a living, breathing document. And one of the things that we decided was that we will not have any offerings. We will not have any courses or products or services or anything else that don't include a done with you component, right? Everything you do from that, because just to your point, like that transformation happens from connection. It doesn't happen from taking in passive information. Like there has to be some transformation that's a part of that. So that's my commitment and my team's commitment, and directly to your point of, really connecting with people and helping them with transformation that we've committed to because of that.
I think that's a beautiful philosophy, man, but like philosophy in action, which is so key there. I think it's like, it reminds me of like, after my sessions with clients, I always have like action steps. Like as soon as we do the session, right at the end, we give 10 minutes. All right, so what are the 3 actions? What are we going to take? Whether, no matter how small they are, what actions are we going to take? Because that's what changes your life. And so many people, get caught up in just, okay, if I just show up and I listen, then I'm good. And then they say, well, nothing's working. Well, it's like, you got to have that action piece. So I think building a product and doing what your team is doing, and having that, what did you say it was called? The do it?
Well, yeah. So typically when you have like consulting is like, or real consulting or kind of consulting is like done for you, right? Mm-hmm. And then information products are kind of do it yourself. And in the middle is DWF, it's DWY, done with you, right? So there's always some component of like, yeah, there's some information to take in, but you're not going to be on your own doing this stuff.
Dude, that's awesome. I totally think that's the best way to do it. It's funny that you say that because I didn't even have a name for that. But right now I'm working on a digital product for like social media for small businesses here. It's how to like connect with their audience. And like that was the thing. I've been working with another guy on it, and it's really cool because it sounds like you got your own team. And I finally met one other person. I'm like, oh my gosh, I think I might be starting to build a team here. So it's really exciting being in the space. And that was the exact thing he said. He didn't use those exact words, but he said, hey man, like there's people who do just information stuff, but then there's also people who just do it at the other end. How can we get it in the middle? And it was like such a big insight for me because I was like, yeah, that makes perfect sense. Like how can we put it right in the middle where it's like, yeah, it's informational, but at the same time, it's got those action-oriented pieces, but then it's like, we'll walk you through how to do this because that's what people really want. Like we're just overwhelmed with information. We need to take it to the next level and say like, here's the information, but here's also how to do it. And then I think that's the most effective product right there to put out there in the world for sure.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, if information was all we needed, we'd all have 6-pack abs, $1 billion business, right? It's like, it would be all done.
That's exactly it. So what exactly, and this was perfect because my next question was, what are you working on that you're really passionate about now? I mean, I know being an entrepreneur, you're always coming up with new stuff. Stuff is always changing. It can get overwhelming, but at the same time, it's really exciting. So what right now are you and your team working on that you're really passionate about?
Yeah, it's actually super exciting. So we have my signature program is called Playful Prosperity. It's an 8-week online program. It's running right now. And again, that runs live. It's not like an evergreen. You sign up whenever you want. I'm there with them every week for 8 weeks and doing coaching. And we have all the video content stuff, which is super fun. There's 90 people in it right now in this round. We had 75 last year, 90 this year. And it's awesome. But yeah, so the next phase though, that I'm working on is I've really leaned into the fact that the thing that I'm really, really good at that I've been fighting against, because, and we do this, dude. If there's like, maybe we don't do this. I do this. If something comes too naturally to me, it must not be valuable to others, right? Like, do you ever do that where you're like, oh, this comes easy to me. There's no way anybody would pay for it.
Guilty as charged, man. Yeah.
Dude, it's ridiculous. And I really do think so many of us do this where we, even if it's not like for a business, we discount and downplay what we've created in the world, the things that we've been able to get through, the transformation we've been able to create, the business we've been able to make, the jobs we've been able to have, the families we've built. Like we just downplay and discount like, oh, everybody can do that kind of thing. And so it's finally been reflected to me enough that I've stopped being resistant to it, that where I can really help people is how to bring their personality into their business. right? How to really help them find out how to build the content and the structure and the thought leadership around their business so they can serve people at a higher level, but not be another one of those, like what I call I do that too businesses, right? Like I coach, I do that too. Oh, I have an online course, I do that too. And the only thing that's going to differentiate people is them really getting out of their own ego, being willing to put themselves out there unapologetically, as long as it serves, and injecting that butter, injecting that personality on that ground floor for what they do. So I'm building a program right now. It's a 90-day program that's going to be all around doing that, with a lot of really cool content and guest speakers. And of course, me doing group coaching with people to really help them do that in their businesses.
I think that's awesome, man. That's brilliant. And the fact, like you were saying there, that people don't have to like, and I felt this too when I was coming through my own stuff. I felt like there was things where when I started creating my own content and I was putting it out there, and I started realizing like, okay, how should I market? What type of, just managing the business side of things. It was like, well, do I have to put on a certain personality to do this whole thing? And it's like, and I almost felt like I was holding back a part of myself, but another part felt that it was necessary. And like what you're saying now is that you don't have to do that at all. In fact, it's the exact opposite. Like, play yourself up. Whatever comes naturally, like that's your bread and butter, and put that out there. And like, and that's the value that you have to give. Yeah,
absolutely, man. 1,000% agree.
Yeah, I think that's beautiful, and I think I really kind of got that sense in your when you gave that talk at ACS the other weekend. I think you gave the example of with your social media, like you'll cut up certain things a certain way, and then you'll post it. I can't remember the example that you gave, but it was really funny. I don't know. I just remember maybe it was in the talk, or maybe it was when we were talking one-on-one. I can't quite remember. Yeah,
about how I would create talks. Was that it?
Yeah,
or
I think so. It was either how you create talks or how you create your social media content. It took me back because I was like, whoa, like that's so creative. I would have never thought to do that.
Yeah.
It was something interesting. How do you do that? How do you create your social media real quick?
So that was probably around talk. So what I would do sometimes, and it depends. Sometimes if I feel inspired to do it this way, I'll do it this way again. It depends on the talk. But if I have like a brand new talk that I'm coming up with, I'll basically, for a week or two or however long I have, I will just take a bunch of notes in a Word document, and then I'll put like a line in between each thought. Is this the same thing? Is this sounding familiar or no?
Yeah. Yep. Okay. Yep.
So then I put a line in between each thought, and they're just all random thoughts. And then what I'll do is to kind of shift my brain out of being electronic mode, I'll print all those sheets of paper out. I'll cut along the line. So I have all these like little strips of ideas and concepts. I'll lay them all out on the floor, and I'll start moving them around until they make sense into one like cohesive thing. So I actually physically get to move the pieces on the floor, and that's how I put them together. So I start grouping things and saying, okay, that slip kind of goes with that slip, and this slip kind of goes with this slip. And then at the end, I'm left with 3 or 4 or 5 piles of slips. And then all I have to do is create the transitions between those different piles, and the talk is done.
Wow. I think that's beautiful. I think that's perfect for people like me too. And like, it sounds like, and we've talked about this, we kind of have similar mindsets where, now that's exactly what it was. Now it's coming back. We were talking about how we just get all these ideas, like, and they just download in really quickly. And you're like, I can't even manage. It's like apples falling from a tree, and you got a basket, and you're under there, and all the apples are falling, and you're like, I got to run this way. I got to run this way. Yeah. And it's just like, how do you manage it all? Because it can get overwhelming.
Yeah, and that's why and that's something else that you and I, maybe this is what we talked about, was having kind of a swipe file, like having like a not now file or yes, a for later file. So yeah, I have a swipe file. I have an email folder in my email box that is, anytime I have any kind of insider idea or thing that I think could be a blog post or could be a social media post or could be whatever, I email it to myself. And I actually have this really cool application on my iPhone called Captio, Captio. And the really cool thing about Captio is that it's a one button thing. You press the button, it opens up the app, you type whatever you want, and you hit send, and it emails it to yourself with the first line of whatever you typed as the subject line. So instead of me having to open up my email, put my email address in, put a subject line in, and then type in my idea, I just type the idea and hit send, and it pops up in my email box with a certain little thing so I know it came from Captio. And then I just put that in a folder. And so if I ever need content, I have a folder that I can go to that has hundreds of ideas. But here's the amazing thing about how creative we are as human beings. I almost never go into that folder, because if I allow the idea to come through and I capture it somewhere, my brain is open to see something else that I could share that's even more relevant and more present. And that way I never, ever feel like I'm without content.
Wow. Yeah, I think that's awesome. And you made that point too, just getting it down on paper and just like putting it from here to here. And then that just allows you to access like I think you like your brain only has so much bandwidth. So if it's not coming from here to here, then you open up more bandwidth for more space to come through.
1,000%. Absolutely.
That's awesome. So I thought this was an interesting question. Hey, Audrey, thanks for asking. So the Prison Break book, who wrote that? Jason wrote that, actually, this guy. So don't worry, if you want to get a copy of that, I'm going to put his link to his website and his stuff in the description box afterwards, so you guys don't have to miss that, okay?
Jared, what I'll do is when we're done here, I'm going to set up a special page for you that's just for your people, that they can get a free copy of the book. So they can get either a digital copy, an audio copy where I'm actually reading it. And if you get the audio copy, at least listen to the About the Author section, because it's me reading it and being a complete idiot. So you can get the digital version, the audio version, or if you're in the United States, you can get a free paperback version. So I'll set up a link for you and I'll give that to you after we're done, and then your people can have at it.
That would be great. You hear that, guy? Yeah, thanks so much, Jason. That's wonderful, man. I mean, that's a beautiful gift. That's really exciting.
My pleasure.
Awesome, man. Well, so we're coming up to a close here. Jason, I just really want to thank you for all this time. And it was really just such a pleasure having you on. I'm really excited to see what you're going to be doing in the future. And I'm really excited as I get more engaged in this community for us to see whatever happens down the road, whatever that may look like, collaboration-wise, coaching-wise, working with other people. I'm really excited by the work and the energy that you bring to the table. So I'm really looking forward to see what else comes up in the future.
I appreciate that, man. That's awesome. Yeah. So I see the comment. So if you're in the United States, you can get a free paperback copy, but otherwise you can definitely get the digital, like the PDF, the Kindle, or the audio version. You'll be able to get all those absolutely free. So you'll have access to all that stuff.
Awesome. And guys, I'll be in more contact with you about that. Jason will set up the landing page and then I'll get the links. So I'll make sure you guys get access to all that information. So don't worry about it. It's coming your way. All right, Jason, thanks so much for being with me, man. I really appreciate it. And I look forward to seeing you. Will you be out in, I think, Michigan or Arizona?
I won't. Yeah, I won't be at the rest of the weekends. I was only there for the first one to come in and teach and hang out with you guys, but I will be there in spirit. Yeah. And love the work you're doing. Katerina, hey, how are you? I love Katerina. She's awesome. So thank you so much for having me here, and for all the people that have been here the whole time and commenting and being engaged with Jared. Keep following this dude because he knows what he's doing. He's a great person to follow, and I'm grateful to be here, man.
Thanks a lot, Jason. I really appreciate it, man. I'll talk to you soon, and have a great week, man, and keep killing it in LA.
Cool, man. You too. I'll talk to you soon.
All right.
All right, later.